Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Vina, and welcome to the SmartTechCheck podcast, where we cover all tech topics that are smart home, home automation, security, and console gaming related. Today is Friday, May 7th, 2021. As many of you know, this podcast has always been about the hunt for new, cool, and innovative solutions. In that regard, I've discovered a new solution that can be just what the doctor ordered for hearing in noisy places so you can connect better with those around you. With that as a backdrop, I want to introduce Tim Trine, CEO of Nupul. Nupul is a brand new listening accessory for the iPhone that promises to disrupt how people can enjoy the spoken word in challenging ambient audio solutions. Tim, welcome to the podcast.
Mark, thanks for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Glad that you're here today. Before we drill into the product itself, Tim, a question I have for you is that I often, when I'm speaking to CEOs, their prior employment history, their prior companies they've been at really has a very significant role from a skill set standpoint in terms of new companies that they're coming to, new products that they're bringing to market. So first and foremost, let's talk a bit about your background before we get into Nupul itself.
Sure. So my background will go way back. I have a PhD in hearing science from the University of Minnesota. And really early on in my academic career, all the way back to my undergraduate days, developed a passion for auditory perception and assumed I would be a career academic, and that was my career path. So after earning my PhD at the University of Minnesota, I went back to Vanderbilt University where I'd done my master's degree and started down that path as a scientist and a professor. And started doing some work for one of the so-called now Big Five hearing aid companies, Starkey Hearing Technologies. And before you knew it, I had a joint appointment at the University of Minnesota and Starkey. And I actually had a very long career at Starkey, 19 years, where ultimately I was the chief technical officer. So after leaving Starkey, I joined Eargo, which is a Silicon Valley startup in the hearing aid space, who just had their IPO about 6 months ago, and built a team there again as the CTO. And early on during my time at Eargo, Steve Verduner, who's the founder of Nupul, reached out to me through a mutual friend and because of that mutual friendship, I took the meeting. And it's one of those meetings where you kind of expect to be polite and unimpressed. And in fact, it was the opposite. It was really intriguing technology, mutual connections there as well. But I just started this, what was a great position at Eargo and said, well, I'm super intrigued by your technology, but timing's not right. That's not something I can do. Fast forward. So I volunteered to help them out for a few years because it wasn't a conflict with Eargo, and volunteered my time to kind of give them some direction in those intervening years. And then in the fall of 2019, I ultimately reached back out to Steve and said, hey, are you still interested in talking? And he replied instantly, and we had lunch again. And before you know it, I was here. So in January 2020, I moved from Eargo to Nupul, and it's been a fun ride so far.
Now, the Eargo experience, which is how I connected with you, probably over a year ago when you were there. Eargo has done some incredibly disruptive things in the hearing assistant space, and that obviously bodes well for the experience that you bring to Nupul. So, when you talk about problems that have to be solved, whether it's Eargo or other types of solutions in the market, they're all trying to, satisfy this problem that a lot of people out there have listening issues. They may not want to acknowledge it, by the way, but it's a much larger problem than most people would admit to, affecting tens of millions of people. Let's talk about the inspiration for Nupul and the problem that it's trying to solve.
Yeah, so rather than focus on impairment and the disability and the sensory deficits associated with hearing loss, Nupul's approach is really to treat the problem itself, right? So if you talk to anybody with mild to moderate or even severe hearing loss, what's their number one complaint? Their number one complaint is the ability to hear a noise, right?
Yes.
On top of that population, there's another population of people like myself who have perfectly normal hearing, but measured by by the audiogram, meaning their sensitivity is perfect. But for a variety of reasons, when they get into a noisy environment, they're extremely challenged. They're disproportionately challenged relative to the average normal adult. So that's a very big population. It's clinically referred to as hidden hearing loss. But if you look at those two populations together, their chief complaint isn't about the ability to communicate in quiet. It's only the ability to communicate in noise. And so Nupal's approach to the market is really going directly after that problem and doing it in a way that creates a very, very accessible product because of the approach from a hardware design perspective and leveraging the computational power of the iPhone or any smartphone eventually.
So talk about the technology itself. It's an accessory, and you probably have one right there.
I've got one in front of me right here.
And it works with the iPhone, and it's an accessory that you just pop onto the bottom.
Exactly. So there you can see it in all its glory.
Yes.
So the camera's on the other side, reverse angle there. But so that's the Nupal accessory. So it's powered over the Lightning port from the phone. Whoops. So that's one of the key advantages of being able to keep the cost down is that we pull very, very little current. So it's less than 30 milliamps of current that we pull from the iPhone. So it's less than 1% of the battery capacity of the iPhone. So you're not going to notice, power loss, even though it's charged over that Lightning connection.
That actually was the next question I was going to ask. So this is not going to cut your battery life in half.
No, not at all. I mean, it's super low, low power. So if you look closely here, and you can see there we go. So that little pattern that you see are the 3 microphone ports. So we have 3 MEMS microphones sitting within this device, plus a microprocessor to do the math. But those 3 microphones are used to create a very, very sharp directional pattern that allows for a dramatic improvement in the signal-to-noise ratio. That is, your ability to hear speech and noise in a noisy environment is dramatically improved. Much greater improvement than you can achieve with 2 or 3 microphones at the ear level. That's a combination of both the math that we're doing, which is a proprietary algorithm that we've worked with the folks at the National Acoustic Laboratories in Australia. So the National Acoustic Laboratories is a Center for Excellence in Hearing and Audition globally, and it's their technology that we're commercializing in this product. The other magic, I guess, is the fact that we're leveraging. So for those people that are wearing AirPod Pros or use AirPod Pros with our product, you'll notice as I turn my head, I'm wearing one AirPod right now. You'll notice as I turn my head, that directional image is steering based on head movement. So we're leveraging. We have a bidirectional communication. Directional steering vector coming from the AirPods and down through the phone to our device, and then the audio signal coming back. So it essentially allows you to hear where you look. So it's a super simple, user interface design. You can see that we've kept it, very, very clean. And then the biggest update since we last talked in January, so we demonstrated then the advantage of this beamforming to you. And since then, what we've done is partnered with a company out of the UK called Chattable Apps. Chattable has a AI-based noise reduction algorithm that we've now integrated. And it's literally just shows up in the user interface as a slider. So it's a single slider where we have 2 sliders, one for noise reduction, one for volume. It keeps the user interface super, super clean. And you can, either hold this in your hand or set it down on a desktop and really just ignore it, right? So you can quickly adjust your volume, quickly adjust how much noise control that you want for the specific environment that you're in, and then engage in the conversation. And it's an important element of what we see as a very frictionless experience, right? People don't want to hide behind their devices. They don't want to have to be fiddling with devices to be able to communicate. They just want to participate and get back into those noisy restaurants, noisy environments that they've retreated from because they just can't hear in those situations.
And what I like about the interface, it seems very clean. It's not a convoluted interface. It seems very matter of fact, which I think bodes well for older users who sometimes get intimidated by complex apps. So it looks very, very clean. The question I have for you, could you give us a little color on the usage models? Like give me some flavor for 2 usage models that you would see this easily play into. I mean, some of them obviously come to my mind, but just to get your perspective on that.
Sure. I mean, obviously the home run environment for us is getting people out into noisy environments again. So as the pandemic eases with vaccinations ramping up, restaurants are beginning to open up again. And so the restaurant environment is a key one. A lot of restaurants are highly reverberant spaces because that creates a lively environment. But for many people, both with normal hearing and with a little bit of hearing loss, they've stopped going, right? Well, all of us have stopped going to restaurants in the past year. But even prior to that, people with a little bit of hearing loss or just a difficult time hearing a noise have stopped going to their favorite pubs and restaurants. So that's a use case that is extremely simple. And it's literally as simple as plugging in the device, popping in your AirPods, and away you go, right? So we have an interface that allows people to, again, look where they're going to hear. And then for those situations that are more specific, we also, let's say you're sitting at a crowded restaurant, but you're sitting next to your spouse and she's the only person that you'd really like to focus on. And you'd rather not have to be turning your head completely. We have a manual mode, so it allows you to just manually steer the direction. So I can set that direction aimed at this person I want to hear, and then just leave it alone, right? And in manual mode, even the screen will go blank, but it'll just keep processing in the background, right? And I'm listening to that right now.
Now these work with any type of Bluetooth earbuds, I assume, or just AirPods?
So they work best with AirPod Pros, right? So initially, the initial launch, which is happening next week, is launching with, actually it's this week rather, is specifically for AirPod Pros or MFI hearing aids, right? So any made for iPhone hearing aid will also work, and that's a great addition in a noisy environment for people that already have MFI hearing aids, which is most modern hearing aids today of the behind the ear or RIC style are typically made for iOS, which is what MFI stands for. So as we test additional Bluetooth 5.0 headsets, we'll continue to support other headsets. The only disadvantage of AirPod Pros or AirPod Maxes, but I don't see anybody wearing an AirPod Max in a crowded restaurant, is the fact that you have to use manual steering. So the automatic steering is a byproduct of leveraging the fact that in iOS 14, that steering information in the context of 3D audio became available for developers from Apple.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a pretty big market, the AirPod category, not the Max over-the-ear headphones, but
right.
That's a pretty big market. I mean, I
AirPod. Last report I read was that the over 100 million AirPods were sold in 2020. Yes. So it's they've got a dominating market share of the truly wireless headphones or earbuds.
Now, so the follow-up question is that this works with, it's got a Lightning connector. It works with iPhones. Do you have plans down the road to create a version that work with Android phones, USB-C?
Absolutely. We're already working on that right now. So we have a USB-C version of that will quickly follow. The challenge will be, who do we work with to get the auto steering? So I've got conversations going on with a number of the obvious choices. So hoping to, have another mainstream ear-level product that will get that steering information. Obviously, on an Android phone, AirPod Pro 3D audio isn't supported. That has to be within the iOS system. But that information, a lot of sensors are being integrated into ear-level devices, and that interface isn't overly complex. We just need to get the steering information, head movement information from somebody's AirPods.
Great. Well, Tim, this is truly great stuff. I know that there will be lots of people interested in this capability. Talk to me about pricing and where will it be sold? Is it just a direct only product? Do you have plans to sell through retail? And give us some color on that.
Sure. Pricing right now is $199. We will, prior to launch, it's too late for this podcast. We'll have launched by the time this airs, but $199 is a very accessible price point. And we're selling direct to consumer initially. As we get more information as we roll out, we'll likely be talking to some brick and mortar retailers as well, but initially it'll be direct to consumer.
Great.
And that's obviously the fastest and easiest way to get a hold of us is just newpool.com.
Yes, I've got the website flashing at that little Times Square ticker below the screen. But this has been great, Tim. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy day to spend some time with me on the podcast. Please follow the SmartTechCheck podcast on our usual social media partner list. That's Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And until next time, have a great week. And thanks again, Tim.
Thank you, Mark.